Hello and welcome to the SME Focus show powered by MTDCNC. I'm Mark Weymouth from the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. I'm your host this week to highlight aspects of UK manufacturing and in particular SMEs. My guest today is Katy Davies, Managing Director of CAP Air Systems, a manufacturer of cable assemblies, mechanical sub-assemblies, PCBs and housings. Katy somehow also finds time to be a non-exec director of the Cambridgeshire Chamber of Commerce, a board member on the advisory board for women manufacturing. If that isn't enough, Katy's support of a local community also includes being a business board member of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority and a co-founder and director of the Citizen Hub, which is something we'll discuss in much more detail later. Hi, Katy. Welcome to SME Focus.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for being on. It sounds like there's going to be plenty to talk about at least, so should be a good show.
Yeah, sorry, I can talk, so do keep me brief, or this will be a 4-year epic, which your listeners will not be prepared for.
Don't worry. Well, if people enjoy it a lot, they can go back to your previous appearance on SME Focus. So you were a guest with Chris Greenough 206 episodes ago. So I think, give or take a week, that's 4 years ago. So welcome back. And I know you've been very busy in the past 4 years, so there's plenty to talk about in recent times, but can I take you a long way back? Can I ask you to go sort of back to the beginning and recap your journey from Cambridge University to Deloitte and then your introduction into manufacturing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, firstly, where's that 4 years gone? It feels like about 5 minutes. It's absolutely terrifying, isn't it? But yeah, really trying to cast my memory back way further. I guess I've had what people would describe as a bit of a squiggly career. So was very fortunate to go to Cambridge, studied history. Couldn't decide what I wanted to do. I think I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I've got no intention of growing up, so I'll delay that a little bit longer. So I studied history, absolutely loved it. Loved kind of the ability to just take a large amount of information, do loads of research and then kind of distill that into sort of, key conclusions, use your critical thinking brain and all of that stuff. So I absolutely loved it. Got to the end of my degree, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And saw kind of on the kind of university milk rounds, saw a job in accountancy with Deloitte. And I thought, well, actually, I'm not great. Numbers are not for me, but the ability to work with lots of different businesses, learn a lot, lots of variety. Actually, that does look quite interesting. So I didn't want to go to London. I'm a complete bumpkin. I love visiting the city, but I'm not a city dweller. So found out that you could still get a brilliant kind of job in the complete behemoth that is Deloitte, but still staying in Cambridge. I was like, okay, well, that works for me. That's great. And joined what was then the food and agriculture team, so specialising in the food and drink industry, which was really interesting. So all of our clients it was almost like a small accountancy firm within the large corporations. So we were doing kind of accountancy, tax advice to kind of owner managers, be they sort of family farming partnerships through to bizarre structures like grain trading cooperatives and all of that kind of stuff. And within that, I still absolutely love a factory tour. I'm a complete nerd when it comes to industrial estates and factory tours, as I'm sure on most of the viewership of this show. I used to love nothing more than donning like a hairnet and getting around a pack house or whatever and just seeing what they were doing to kind of essentially manufacture food, because it is just a sort of separate strand of manufacturing. So I think that's where the bug sort of started. And I spent a long time there, probably about like 9 years, I guess. And then I decided I needed a bit of a change, like the look of industry, and got the opportunity to go and work for the Marshall Group in Cambridge. So it's a large group. And at the time it had a motor dealership. It had a fleet kind of refrigerated transport division. It had an aerospace and defence company, and obviously property around Cambridge, which was starting to grow. So yeah, really brilliant kind of adventure into the mad world of another, very established family-owned business. Long and the short of it, did lots of different roles in there. Like, and one boss at one point told me I'd never had a proper finance job, which I think is probably right. So I tended to find myself like, I quite like a challenge. I quite like sort of a knotty problem to fix. So I quite often find myself jettisoned into a bit of a business that needed something fixing or an investigation doing, whatever that might be. And ended up ended up then going into sort of my first proper finance job, which was the head of finance for the bit that looked after the military aircraft in the defence company. So that was awesome, fascinating, really, really fascinating. So we had big MOD contracts to maintain aircraft type called a C-130, which is a Hercules, large kind of transport logistics aircraft, and just kind of was captivated by the fact that these guys on the shop floor, who were all just brilliant, they probably taught me more than anybody in my career, actually. And they just sort of, you'd be chatting to them in the morning, and they say, oh yeah, this afternoon we're a bit busy, we've got to take the tail off the aircraft. Like, you're doing what? Sorry. So I started, I'd go down and like take my lunch and kind of watch, and they'd be like, what are you doing? I was like, it just blows my mind that you just very casually will just, in about half an hour, take the tail off an aircraft, just pop it somewhere, store it safely, do a load of work, and just pop it back on again, as if it was nothing. And it just absolutely blew my mind. And, like all of us, it just gets under your skin, doesn't it? It's absolutely captivating what people are able to do and the incredible things that UK manufacturing in all of its flavours and shapes and sizes across the UK churns out on a day-to-day basis, like really modestly. Which of those guys will have got home and said to their kids or whatever, oh yeah, I took the tail off the aircraft today? Probably none, because they do it all the time. But it just, it blew my mind, and that was it. Absolutely, hook, line and sinker. So then I got the opportunity to take my first step into running a business, which was Camden Boss. So I got the role as MD of Camden Boss and was there for about 3.5 years. And that was, brilliant, but very much a sort of transformation role. So brilliant challenge with a great team. And we had some wonderful, challenging years through the pandemic and all of that joyous and navigating sort of war with Ukraine and all of the things that was doing to the market. But again, brilliant, just a brilliant different shade of manufacturing to get stuck into. So that was kind of plastic enclosures, components, complex global supply chains. So it was brilliant.
So I think the last time we met in the real world was when you were still at Camden Boss or towards the end. And you mentioned sort of how challenging and dynamic a role that was in terms of what on earth was going on in the world at that time.
Oh my goodness.
But I know at that point you were also involved with Make UK on the Eastern Regional Advisory Board. So firstly, I don't know how on earth you found the time. But secondly, can I ask why you got involved with Make UK and what you sort of hope the outcome would be, how you found the process?
Absolutely. So first, before I get shot by Chris Greenough, I still haven't rejoined. Now I'm at Cap Air, so just getting it on the table. My intention is still to join. Time has just been a bit horrendous. So so we ended up, I was introduced to, so obviously Charlotte Horrobin was our, who we'll come back to in a moment, I'm sure, but Charlotte was our regional membership director at the time, and got introduced to her by a former colleague at Marshall, who just sort of said, look, actually, as an SME manufacturer, these guys are really good. They're really collaborative, great way to sort of, share pain with peers, be part of an organisation that can help support you with all of the dynamics that are going on at the moment. So had an introductory call with Charlotte, and we're still, great mates and still colleagues now, however a scary number of years later. And it was brilliant, actually. So, when you looked at the Eastern Regional Advisory Board, some fantastic businesses around the table. And for me as an SME, as someone leading an SME, it was just brilliant to be able to contextualise what was going on. So it give you a sense of, you know what it's like, and particularly during the pandemic when it was all a bit isolated, you'd sort of sit there and some new and exciting issue would land on your desk and you think, oh God, here we go. And, you'd sort of have your sort of RAB board meeting and there'd be a poll or some data that Make UK brought with them, and it just helped you realise actually it's not just you, it's not just what you're doing, it is affecting everybody, and this is what some of the other bigger manufacturers are doing to cope with it, which is great for giving you kind of inspiration or these little hacks into how you can kind of try to battle through things and embrace different ideas or different approaches to stuff. So I found it really, really inspiring and definitely kind of sanity restoring through that period to have a bunch of people that you could kind of share stuff with and learn from. And of course, met some fantastic people who are still, great kind of mates and peers now, which is wonderful. So very, very happy to rejoin in due course. I apologise for not having done it sooner, but no, they've been fantastic, and it was I wouldn't hesitate to rejoin again. And I'm not on commission.
Perhaps on their marketing, they should say provide some sanity. That's probably a good testament for them.
Yeah, a little bit.
So scouring through LinkedIn and trying to put things in chronological order.
Good luck to you, Mark.
Yeah, I think September 23, 2023, you talk about founding Citizen Hub, but I'm sure there's probably plenty of work before that, even in the concept. It sounds a very interesting and intriguing thing. So can you tell the audience what Citizen Hub is and really what you were hoping to achieve, and maybe in the past year and a half, nearly 2 years, what's changed? Has the mission changed a bit? What have you been successful with? What have you yet to do? So Citizen Hub, go on, tell us what it is. I'm intrigued.
Go for it. Yeah, so to just help with the chronology, so I probably left Camden summer 2023, and I needed a bit of a break because it had been quite intense. It'd been like, you know, 3.5 years of quite intense stuff, both in terms of kind of internal transformation work, which is quite energy consuming. It's great fun, but it's energy consuming. And I started working with some guys. So I live out near St Neots in Cambridgeshire, and I'd started working with some chaps over there, but we never quite managed to work within the business together because of geography. It was just too far. But we were looking at sort of future talent pipelines at Camden and how we could really tap into the sort of local young kind of labour market. You know, how do we, you know, crack that nut that we're all wrestling with of unpacking the manufacturing sector to young people and really making it quite captivating. So met these guys, so ended up being my co-founder of Citizen Hub. So a chap called Alex Hughes and his gang at Inspire to Ignite. So had a fateful chat with him where I said, look, I'm leaving Camden, I'm just taking a bit of time out. I need to figure out what I do, but I think I just need a bit of a sort of brain rest for a minute. And he said, well, why don't you just come and work with us for a bit? So I was like, well, actually, that is a perfect tonic because it's just very, very different. And it was just a bit of a break from the manufacturing sector, actually, which was quite, you know, pleasant. Whilst I love it, it had been quite intense.
Exhausting,
So we were wrestling with the problem of, so St Neots is the largest town in Cambridgeshire. It's geographically sort of a town centre encircled by industrial estates, as so many of our towns are, right? So what we'd hear from a business market standpoint was a lot of manufacturers. So in St Neots, you've got people like ABB, you've got Bosch Rexroth, you've got Coveris, you've got IPECO, Pico, some really big manufacturers, all of them really struggling with talent and finding labour. And then when you'd speak to your mates or, you know, I'd go to a running club or whatever, what you'd hear from the residents was it's really hard to find a job. So we sort of looked at each other and thought, well, hang on a minute, you know, is there not some sort of simple, like, you know, bringing together of worlds here that needs to be sort of facilitated or catalysed? So our local job centre is in Huntingdon, which is probably a 10-minute train ride away. It's probably 25 minutes by car, maybe, but it's not in the town. So some people struggle to sort of get there, and it's another barrier. If you're out of work, it's another barrier, perceived or otherwise, to being able to get support. And as we sort of started to dig into it, we found that actually the job centre teams, it's full of great people. The work coaches there are fantastic, but then you get something like 12 minutes to speak to each case or each customer every week. And that 12 minutes has to cover like a benefits review and a quick wellbeing check. So there's no kind of proactive support. They don't get the time when it's not in the policy. They've been cascaded down to do the sort of proactive like job search support bit. So they'd be asked if are you actively looking for work? Yes. Okay. You know, and then it stops and they're kind of left to go and look at Indeed or whatever. And Indeed's, you know, a crazy place. It's quite hard to navigate. So we sort of said, well, actually, what if we found a space and created if you had a blank piece of paper and no kind of government policy behind you, you know, and the freedom to operate it, what would you make a job centre look like? So again, coming out of the pandemic period, we sort of said, well, actually, you've got, you know, you start to think about the stuff that is kind of challenging people around getting finding a job or finding work, and you start to realise that actually there's it's really complex area, you know, it's huge. So we took a bit of a leap with an independent training provider. So we said, well, actually, for a lot of people, they're going to need some careers advice, and that conversation that is around, you know, what are your skills, what do you want to do, what's your aspiration, or, you know, just supporting people to make that step or that bold choice. And then for some people, the answer might be that they need a skill, or even if that skill just boosts their confidence enough to then go out into the world of work, So Skills Provider was our first partner there. And then that quickly grew to, well, actually, for some people, they're not even ready to take that first step. So maybe they've come out of COVID, they've isolated because of their health, they've lost all their confidence, they've lost their connection to their place, they've lost their sense of belonging. So then we wrapped in community. So we've got kind of volunteering opportunities, other community groups kind of linked in there. So, I mean, it's been a bonkers journey, which could be subject of a whole other ramble, sorry. But long and short of it is we've kind of iterated. We've learned a heck of a lot. I mean, like, we got the wonderful opportunity a couple of months ago now to go to Anthropy, which is a really interesting conference looking at the future of Britain for the next kind of 50 years. And we ended up, we got invited to host a session on kind of how to build your own citizen hub, because our idea is that, we couldn't found a citizen hub ourselves because we're rooted in that context, but we would love to mentor and help other people found something similar to support what their local community needs. So we ended up playing Snakes and Ladders, Citizen Hub Snakes and Ladders on a 10-foot square carpet, kindly printed for us by Moss UK. Thank you, Moss. Because it's basically been a massive game of snakes and ladders. So you'll learn something and it can either propel you and unlock whole new partners, whole new sets of progress, or you step on a ladder and, or the other way around. Sorry, I've got my snakes and my ladders mixed up. or you slide down the stake and you're back to part, step one. So it could even be like, something kicks off on Facebook about your local town and that ends up impacting the local area. It's crazy. So it's been fascinating. It's been one of the best things I've ever done. It's just fantastic seeing people directly benefit from having that local support there. We've now got the job centre have seconded kind of work coaches in there every Tuesday. So we've now got that presence to do the benefit side of it. And then we make sure that our partners are there to do the wraparound support every Tuesday. And that's just been wonderful. And we're so fortunate that our local kind of Department of Work and Pensions director, wonderful lady called Julia Nix, she's just incredibly supportive and incredibly innovative. So it's kind of trying to meet their policy kind of wishes and supplement that with the stuff that they just don't have the sort of budget or kind of prioritisation to do. So yeah, our key partners there now are our two local FE providers. So again, more context, it's on the border of Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire. It's been identified by the combined authority as a further education cold spot. So it's quite difficult for young people and adult learners locally to find access to training that they might want to do or need. So we're partnered with Cambridge Regional College and Bedford College Group, who are just fantastic. So they're doing stuff in there every day. We've got a debt advice charity, because again, a lot of people, when you look at root causes of stuff or root causes of mental health or other barriers to work or to employment, debt always comes up. We're talking to the Citizens Advice Bureau about them being in there as like a any other question type support. We've got a financial advisor hoping to be in there sort of pro bono, just to give people access to that support in one very destigmatized space in the sort of market square, like around the back of the market square in St Neots. So it used to be the irony is 22 years ago, before it closed, it was the job centre in the town. But since then, it's been like a cafe, it's been a nightclub. It's, people have got very good other memories, destigmatized memories of that space. So when they walk in, it isn't charged with the pressure of being in a job centre or the sort of sense of being in a council building. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it does just bring a different dynamic to the interaction. So yeah, it's fantastic. I think I can probably mention it now, but even better is, I think today even, we're being announced as one of the shortlisted nominees for an award with Ingenuity at their Skills Award for skills partnerships, which is just fantastic. So we're really very appreciative, of the support that we've had from the sector and from bodies like Ingenuity. So yeah, it's been awesome, but tiring.
Okay, well, but hopefully that nomination will also bring some more publicity, because I think it sounds an amazing thing. But like all these things, it's such a shame that there's just one. You'd hope that it would inspire more to be founded elsewhere. So
absolutely,
let's hope that the publicity helps.
Yeah. So in terms of kind of Citizen Hub future, we're working on Citizen Hub number 2, which is in Wimbledon. And we were really fortunate to be featured on the One Show in January. They recorded in December and it went out in January. So yeah, we're really fortunate that we're sort of starting to gather a bit of momentum. And then our hope is, our dream is, time bandwidth and conditions prevailing, that we might end up working on seeding 5 hubs by the end of this year. So we've got other candidate communities coming forward, and again, kind of thinking about, our vision is it's almost like a social franchise. So like we can distill what has worked for us, we can distill what really hasn't worked for us and what we wouldn't recommend. We can support and mentor other people founding them, and we can help with bits like, structures, etc., just from the learnings that we've had in St Eyres. But we couldn't be those local people because we just don't have that. Excuse me, we just don't have that local community knowledge that is fundamental. Because otherwise, you're just another body that's come into a community and is doing stuff to it, which is just not going to land. So it's finding those kind of key people in that community that have got the sort of the passion for their community to be angry enough to want to start doing something about it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, well, I think that's really inspiring, and at the end of the day, this is a program mostly talking about SMEs and manufacturing, so it's good to take that diversion. There's so many analogies anyway, so full credit for what you and the rest of the team have achieved over there. Coming back to the more mundane in comparison, I hope Cape don't mind me saying that. So again, if I'm keeping the right chronological order, you've joined as MD of Cape last summer, so back to the MD of a manufacturing focused business as well. Can you tell us more about what Cape does, other than my couple of words of introduction, and maybe what makes Cape different? What are your differentiators? Where does the business sort of see itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I joined Cape almost a year ago. Again, where has that time gone? It's felt like moments. So Cape it's small. It's owned by a great mate of mine that I've known for a frightening number of years. So we had a slightly fateful conversation just over 12 months ago, where he sort of said, without betraying any confidences or anything, he sort of, he's in his 60s, put it that way, and he just sort of said, I'm not looking to retire, but I need to think about succession. I need to think about what I'm doing with the business. I love it, love my team, want to make sure that, their employment can continue, so i.e. don't want to just sell it and someone just take the contracts and close the business and leave, the staff kind of in a pickle. It's like, but probably like a lot of people, even like me when I kind of left Camden, he's just really tired. The last few years have been just so testing for everybody, and just when you think you've got an air gap, you then get more geopolitical stuff happening, and it's mad. So he was like, I think he just got a bit tired, and we're on the press. Well, at that point, we've got some really good contracts. We're growing quite nicely. So he just sort of said, look, I just need a bit of help with this. So I joined 1st of June with the remit of kind of helping them navigate that growth. So again, I enjoy like a transformation challenge. I love kind of trying to sort organizational structures, trying to sort, processes, policies, all that kind of stuff, and making sure that the production can run, as smoothly as possible, sorting out supply chains and stuff. So it's absolutely right up my street. I've been here for nearly a year. In that time, we've rebranded. Our website is still under construction. So just to warn you, I think, excuse me, if you go to our website, which is capeairsystems.com, there'll be a kind of pending. It's on its way. Right. We've moved site to a larger premises to cope with the growth that we've got going on, which I promised when I was at Camden. So we moved 2 sites into one at Camden. It's horrendous. Like moving a site is awful. I promised I'd never do it again, and here we are. And we've done all sorts of stuff. So we've made some kind of people changes. We've recruited quite heavily. So we've just come to the end of our financial year, and our revenue's grown by just over 50% this year. So we're definitely on a bit of a warpath, and we're quoting at healthy levels. We're struggling to keep up with the capacity growth requirement that we've got, but it's a really exciting place to be. And again, to be able to sort of do that a little bit closer to home is great. So I've only got like a 10-minute commute in the morning, which is wonderful, and with a wonderful bunch of people who have got just brilliant expertise. So like you mentioned in your intro, which you nailed, we make PCBs, so we don't do surface mount currently. We do the sort of through hole prototyping, customization type stuff, and we've got local partners that will do the sort of the kind of heavy stuff in the surface mount, but we'll do the tricky bespokey bits. We make cable assemblies, wiring harnesses, we'll do box build, we do basically anything that's kind of electromechanical assembly. So yeah, we've got a range of ages in the workforce. Our oldest employee is a wonderful lady who's 72, but she still works with us 3 days a week and has no intention of stopping, which is wonderful. And it's wonderful that the variety of work that we've got isn't so physically demanding that, it stops her from working before she's, which is fabulous. And she's an absolute cracker. She's great. Through to our youngest staff member who's 20, and he's just about to start an apprenticeship with us. So he's been with us for a year, figuring out what he wants to do. And we're gonna be keeping him and putting him on an apprenticeship, which is fantastic. So yeah, we service a range of sectors. So, to answer your question, what makes us different? God, it's a really great question. I mean, we're really fortunate to have a great team of people who've got some awesome experience and expertise in what they do. I mean, the fact that we can produce cable assemblies and pretty complex wiring looms that are really great quality. So the feedback on our quality is always exceptional. And it can be, it's affordable. People are blown away that there are still UK manufacturers that are able to produce at a cost-effective rate things like cabling assemblies and wiring harnesses. So, we probably currently work with all of our neighbours on our industrial estate, which is wonderful. So being able to do that super local supply chain is just the coolest part of the job, I think, because, sustainability aside, it's just wonderful, as part of the community to be able to support each other. Yeah. But, we're on the doorstep of Cambridge. We've got some great stuff coming out of Cambridge in terms of tech. We've got some great customers who are part of that kind of IoT scene. They're great at doing the software part and doing the sort of, PCB development and design, but they need somebody to then create the hardware that then translates those digital signals into some sort of physical, act effectively. So, yeah, we're really proud of what we do, and we are exporting currently probably about 70% of our turnover to the Middle East, which is again fantastic. And yeah, no, it's just a really exciting place to be. So yeah, what does that look like over the coming year? I dread to think, but continued growth and picking up more of that kind of, my slight, obsession and through my work with the Combined Authority, I'm sort of really passionate about it. Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is a really fascinating region to work in. You've got some of the sort of most prosperous and most productive areas of the UK, postcodes of the UK. So in Cambridge, you've got like high levels of kind of wealth, innovation, all of this great stuff. But then when you look at sort of the Fens and Peterborough, you've got some of the kind of toughest areas of deprivation in the country. So it's like, well, actually, for me, manufacturing is and it kind of links back to why we did the hub in the first place. Actually, manufacturing is a brilliant sector. If we can unlock those pockets of people and get them working in your SME manufacturers or your larger manufacturers, it's a brilliant way of creating, inclusive economic growth. So that's what I'm kind of really keen that we achieve through CapAir, is being able to sort of benefit from the goodness on our doorstep in Cambridge and tap into markets like medtech, etc., and doing the manufacturing work for them, but also making sure that we're hiring and supporting our local community in doing it.
Okay. In terms of local businesses, I think when we chatted, you mentioned that you're doing some work with Jason from Cambridge Kinetics and the Kinovate software. Jason will have been last week's guest in terms of how these shows go out. So an AI-based software solution is perhaps not the easiest thing to explain. Jason did a good job. I would probably do a terrible job. I'm hoping that maybe you could do a different job of explaining how does your business actually use the software? What does it do for you to help people, maybe as a tag on to last week's episode? As a user, what does this AI magic source software do for your business?
Oh, so they've called it. So we were introduced to Jason. I mean, he's fantastic, and it's perfect timing that we're sort of in succession. So it's great. And obviously, so he's just joined me as a non-exec director of Cambridgeshire Chambers of Commerce. So the poor guy can't escape me at the moment. But yes, we introduced to Jason last summer because we're sort of sat here as a very typical SME manufacturer. We're working with sort of pretty legacy accountancy and MRP, ERP software and systems. It's just not quite cutting it for what we do, and we're not even that complex, really. When you think about what manufacturers do generally,
I would have thought your bill of material would be quite complex and quite varied, though, being a subcontractor rather than a traditional baked bean factory.
Yeah, yes, that is true. Yeah, the bombs are quite complex, but for instance, the software that we've got at the moment, which is kind of without kind of sending anybody up the river, it can't cope with having kind of components in multiple locations. So if we've got components out for processing with our subcontractors, it just can't cope with that. So it's just it's silly little things like that just make it a little bit harder for us to really keep up with the growth that we've got without adding more heartache to the staff that we've already got, or adding more resource. Which, if I'm adding resource, I want to be adding like super productive people, or people that we're investing in to be the future talent of the business, not people to kind of administer stuff or chase components around the factory, which is really painful. So yeah, we were introduced to Jason. Obviously, you heard his tale last week, but as a software developer with a master's from the IFM, he's like the absolute kind of dream in terms of somebody that really gets the pain points and the issues that we have as SME manufacturers. So we've looked at lots of different options to upgrade, and the cost outlay, and it still feels like a gamble because you're not sure if it's going to work, etc. So yeah, so we've been really fortunate, and there'll be more to come on this as we get to sort of fruition. But obviously, Jason has got his core package, which is called Kinebase. We've been working with Jason and his team to add on a sort of customized layer to that will then effectively extend the capabilities of Kinebase to operate as a manufacturing ERP system, and then it can interface with Xero and other things as well. So they're calling it Project Supersonic. Given the amount of paper that we have here, it's more like Project Nosebleed. I mean, we're definitely taking an SME from kind of some pretty basic processes to AI-enabled stuff that just makes my brain hurt. But the idea being that actually the sort of AI functionality that they've got in there, and the sort of ability for it to link with, say, like our customers with APIs, so that we've got, we can seamlessly transmit our testing data into their environment and vice versa. It just takes out loads of manual process, or, processes that are probably in somebody's head. This is the log on for this system, this is how you do it. Actually, it's all based in one system. Customer experience is enhanced through that as well. Even down to things like the way that we put parts in, the ability for us to just sort of effectively take a photo of a label and that beam into the system and just take a whole load of manual processing out and improve our data accuracy, reduce the risk of kind of data inputting errors and things. It's going to be transformational. It's really, really exciting. But what it has meant, I feel really sorry for the guys, because, it's forced us to ask a lot of questions around our future strategy, because actually, what capabilities do we need the system to do? What fundamental process re-engineering do we need to do? Actually, it's easier to do it at this point. So it's been an incredible process, and the team there are just fantastic. So again, I'm not on commission, but maybe I should be. But they've just been brilliant. It's been a brilliant experience partnering again with a local company, but it feels like a true partnership, because they will always just, if they see something cool that they think you might be interested in, or maybe there's a grant that might be useful to extend their work or whatever, we'll co-bid on stuff, and we'll kind of work together to do it, because actually both of us want the same outcome, which is a low cost entry point ERP system that is brilliant for SME manufacturers and allows SMEs to scale with the tech to take the pain out of doing so. So yeah, it's really exciting, but another thing on the hit list. So that's why this year feels like it's gone in a blur.
Well, keeps you out of trouble if you're busy, they tell me. So
not sure that's true.
No, maybe not. So I think as you were talking through the ERP system stuff, you're obviously describing quite a big challenge, but I want to move on to an even bigger challenge, probably perhaps the biggest challenge. So again, late last summer, well, you need to be careful what you get up to in the summer. So late last summer, you became part of the inaugural advisory board trying to successfully launching the Women in Manufacturing initiative. Now, that's obviously a massive topic and a massive challenge. Over the past year, can I ask you how things have progressed and what observations and what sort of opinions you've formed on, or the initiative have formed on how do you go about addressing the issues?
Yeah, because obviously it's no small challenge. It's crazy, and what really blows my mind is when you look at the stats involved. So we had, I would, highly recommend looking at the reports that the IFM have issued. So they've issued a report kind of just summarising where the UK stands in terms of its global competitors around female participation in the sector, and we come in dead last in the league tables in terms of our percentages of the workforce that are female. So I think it's 26% of all employees involved in the manufacturing sector are female, which is crazy. And, having had the career that I've had, it's been fantastic. And I've been very fortunate to have been accepted and, work for employers that have been, very supportive of having female staff. And I've not necessarily experienced issues around being a female in those manufacturing environments. That said, I'm not a technical manufacturer, so I came into the manufacturing sector through a support function, through finance, where it's possibly a little bit easier. But again, when you look at those stats, even those sorts of roles in like your finance, HR, other support functions, procurement, whatever else it is, levels of female participation are dropping there as well. And whilst we've made a few, some progress in terms of getting kind of young females into engineering, it's a real challenge then retaining them in the sector. So there's a real kind of drop off when you get to sort of, females in their 30s either. And then there's loads of, every time you look at a stat, you just think, you just have more questions as, is it this, what's going on there? So it's brilliant that this research has started to unearth some of those, and as they progress and kind of work more and the team work more on it, it will start to kind of produce some more kind of pragmatic suggestions, recommendations, etc., back into the sector on how we can do better. And again, for me, it's obviously the Women in Manufacturing initiative is around the pointy challenge of gender diversity, but actually if we can crack gender diversity, actually it sort of reads across to diversity in general, which we all know is a good thing. Diversity of thought, diversity of approach, diversity of technical capability, whatever it is, it brings such richness to any business, and to your execution, to your culture, whatever. So it's just such a thorny thing to crack. So being part of the inaugural advisory board, it's been an absolute honour. Like the board composition is fantastic, and it's a really great bunch of people. I'll never forget our first meeting where you maybe know a few people in the room, but actually we spent a couple of hours together and left as if we'd known each other for ages. It's a really great bunch of people from a really diverse range of businesses, backgrounds, sectors, and experiences. So the majority of this year has been kind of really focusing on on the kind of establishing those foundations of actually what should the Women in Manufacturing initiative be focusing on to make the most impact. So the idea is not to replicate what other people are doing well. It's not to kind of tread on anybody's toes or ruffle feathers. It's just there to be, the thought leader and kind of really helping businesses get their head around what they can do to make themselves more accessible to female workers, even from the small things. Like I wrote a piece for local press probably about a year ago for International Women's Day, and actually, one of my reflections. I'm only 5 foot. I'm not very tall, but when I was working at Marshall, the joke was I just didn't fit any PPE. So high vis was invariably longer than, if in the summer you'd be wearing like a dress and it looked like all you were wearing was your high vis. It's kind of amusing because you chuckle about it, but actually, and again, I was a visitor to that environment, so it didn't matter quite so much. But if you're a person of my sort of stature working in that environment, and fair enough, that was a long time ago and the world has changed quite a bit since then, it's sort of another reminder that it's not that world is not built for you. You don't really belong there because the kit doesn't fit you, and it's those tiny little micro things, even through to just being kind of understanding of the fact that, people have got different pressures in their life and different things going on, so it's a massive topic to broach, and it's been, like I said, it's been a pleasure to be part of the sort of inaugural year, trying to get our head around establishing what this can be that makes the most impact. So obviously the highlight in the calendar is the annual conference. So this year's conference is on the 23rd of October back at the MTC in Coventry. So it's going to be a brilliant day of kind of panels, workshops. They did a brilliant job last year of hosting a sort of hybrid setup. So online participants kind of really felt part of the day, which was curated beautifully. So again, there'll be kind of interactive stuff if you can't make it in person, but that'll be a real kind of distilling of what's kind of been going on in that first year. We've got a whole load of sort of breakout groups as well coming off that main advisory board. So there's a group of people looking at kind of events and awareness and how to promote that. There's a whole group of people looking at kind of policy angle and what needs to be factored into policy, to help the guys who are doing the IFM sort of pointy end of policy. What is it that they need to be talking about? What research do we need to be doing to back up what we kind of feel is going on, but to really support it? So what I would say is, this is absolutely, so we've got male members of the advisory board. It's really important to stress that this is not about a female only organisation for the promotion of females in the sector. It is, we're missing out on a massive part of the employment pool in not attracting more females. So we're all struggling to recruit. It's quite challenging. But if you're automatically discounting 74%, or not discounting, but not attracting 74%, that job just becomes so much harder. So what I would say is, do come along to the conference, do come and get stuck in, do just be curious and just kind of have a look at the research that's been done, and just be conscious of the fact that
if I can chime in. Sorry,
of course
if I can chime in on that for the sake of some of the audience. So I did attend last year and found it really interesting and really useful. But I think you mentioned one of the features you did last year, and so I think it's great you're going to repeat, is this hybrid ability for people to just pop into symposiums or and for people to commit a day of their diary is hard. Absolutely. And I'm sure there's lots of people watching who think, well, I'm not going to commit a day, but if you commit an hour or a couple of hours, there's a real benefit to be gained from there. I mean, I enjoy my involvement. I sort of, my background is all automotive a long time ago, and automotive was probably better balanced. And then later in life, I've sort of thought, oh, this world's a bit weird. Why are we missing out on this talent stream? Why is the working world a little bit boring because there's less diversity in it than maybe I'd seen earlier? But in the session, I sort of came away with maybe more of an awareness, this sort of initiatives for allyship. And so I should give a shout out. With Lee Chambers will be coming up as a guest at some point in June. So there's plenty for men to find interesting and involved. And I've sympathised that you have this title of women in manufacturing, which there's a danger therefore that it turns off male participants because it says the word women in it. But I would really encourage people, drop in for an hour if you don't want to drop in for a day. There is a lot of good stuff last year, so I'm sure there'll be a lot of good stuff this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely, we've got some great speakers already lined up. Like I will get sacked majorly if I blow any cover, but we've got some really great kind of speakers on panels. We've got some really great kind of workshop sessions that are really focused on kind of, okay, this is all great. We can talk about it. We can do research, but actually what can manufacturers do? What can leaders in any business do to work on an area of, that they might be struggling with? So that might be kind of, focusing on kind of young talent and kind of the shifting perceptions of young people, particularly young females, looking at that retention issue kind of later on in kind of life. So there's, absolutely, as you say, if you can't get over to Coventry, because again, travel's, it's a massive commitment, but do dip into the workshop sessions. If there's something that, there will be something that you see on the agenda that will appeal, I'm very sure. But just come in and have your brain exercise, and it will definitely leave you inspired and kind of probably clearer about kind of what is it that you can do in your own businesses to really kind of improve that diversity. And again, like I said, if when we're talking about diversity, actually it's got through the lens of female kind of participation in manufacturing, but actually it's appreciating diversity in all its forms. So it will it will have a wider impact than just on the kind of gender angle.
I thought it was very successful last year in actually coming up with suggestions and things to, it wasn't a day of preaching about figures. It was a day of coming up with suggestions and improvements and networking stuff. And I found there was lots to take away from it. It wasn't a cold presentation of look at these terrible figures. It was, how do we do this? This is how somebody's done this. So it was actually giving information and content and sharing. So it was very productive, I thought, for people to get involved with.
Good. I'm pleased.
So obviously we've talked about the October event, which is a massive one. Are there other things in the pipeline that you're allowed to talk about, or what else is going on in the world of the Women in Manufacturing initiative?
So I think There's stuff going on all the time. So you'll see presence at things like the NEC in June. And generally kind of out and about at trade shows. So I would definitely say have a little look at the Institute for Manufacturing's Women in Manufacturing, sorry, words to get your teeth around, section on their website for what's coming up and who's going to be where, and obviously keep an eye on the socials. And I think definitely have a look at the research that's come out, and it will be really interesting to see kind of, like I said, we've had kind of a foundational year looking at kind of what can make the best impact and what are the key areas to focus on. So it's been a real year of kind of setting sort of strategy and setting kind of identity for the initiative. So definitely pop along to the IFM's kind of stands at Advanced Manufacturing and Engineering and places like that over the summer and find out more, because it's a brilliant place to be. And the beauty is that it fits really nicely with the other work of great organisations doing things in different domains. So the collaborations that are going on are really fantastic with organisations like Ingenuity, with Make UK, etc. So it's gathering pace and it's gathering impact. But again, if you've got an angle on it or you want to get involved, that, like I said, there are loads of focus groups and kind of specialist groups that are focusing on particular areas of the challenge in front of us. So please do just either find me on LinkedIn or find either Kate Wilshire or Sarah Blacksmith, who are two of our sort of co-founders, and just stick your hand up and just say, look, I'd love to participate somehow.
Excellent. So final question of the interview is a traditional one, and the tradition is to ask, what have you got planned for the next 12 months? Now, in your case, I'll ask you to abridge that because we haven't got the rest of the day to hear what you've got planned. So can you give me the highlights of what have you got planned and what do you want to achieve in the next 12 months?
Retain my sanity and my No, I think over the next 12 months, obviously this past 12 months has been absolutely bonkers, but it's been fantastic in terms of establishing some really cool stuff. So from a CapAir standpoint, the next 12 months will look like sustained growth, all being well, sustained growth, picking up some new customers, doing more work for existing customers. Again, on the back of kind of implementing our magic ERP system, which I can't wait to have ready and sort of roll out in the business. Looking at how we can kind of almost be a lighthouse, the plan and the strategy for that, both with the Cambridge Kinetics guys and with the Combined Authority and things like Made Smarter being rolled out in the East. Actually, how can we, we are, like I said, a very typical SME manufacturer. So if we can do it and we can embrace some kind of digital innovation, actually, can we support other people in doing that too, even in terms of just sharing the scary stories or letting people just come and see what it's done for us, to just open up people's minds a little bit. That would be really key for the next 12 months. From the Citizen Hub standpoint, just kind of, just taking a deep breath and just supporting other people set up theirs and seeing that kind of continue to make impact in communities. And again, it does feed back into sort of ultimate manufacturing land, because if we can increase the number of people participating in the employment market, then that should free up kind of labour pools in places where manufacturers are struggling to find new talent. And hopefully not take on any more board positions, because I don't think I've got any more capacity, but continue to work with things like the Combined Authority Business Board. I mean, it's fantastic to get the privilege, to work with a Combined Authority that actually are proud to talk about manufacturing and to give space to SMEs within that manufacturing landscape as being a really important part of the local economy. I feel, I've kind of just spent a bit of time. I kind of did a post this week, so we're at UK Reef next week, talking about kind of the region and what it has to offer for kind of inward investment. But it needs to not be underestimated just how wonderful it is as an SME manufacturer to be working in a place where it's really recognised and given that platform. So continuing to fly that flag for them.
Excellent. Okey-dokey. Sounds like a busy year. I wish you well. So I will wrap up. Before I say thank you, I'll ask, how do people go about finding out more about CapAir, and how do they go about following yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn. So I'm on there. I'm Katy with a Y and Davis with an IES. yeah, so do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or drop me a message if you've got any questions or want to understand stuff. We have our wonderful Capare Systems website, which is still undergoing construction. So again, you might get a whole page. There will be a fanfare and a giant cheer from me when that finally goes live. So that's caparesystems.com. And if you want to look at Citizen Hub, it's citizenhub.co.uk to find out more information there, or just follow either of those things on socials to see what is going on. And again, I'll be at kind of trade shows this summer, I'll be at UK Reef next week. So, do feel free, or if you're passing St Ives in Cambridgeshire, feel free to pop in for a cup of coffee. Kettle's always on.
Brilliant. Okie dokie. Well, thank you very much, Katy, for being a guest and giving us a view into your very productive and crazy world. So thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. Excellent. Well, I'll wrap up this episode with the usual words that if you'd like to get in touch with the show with a comment, a suggestion, or more importantly, if you'd like to appear in a future episode, please email us at inquiries@mtdcnc.com or contact myself, Stuart Whitehead, or Joe Reynolds. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. From me, Mark Weymouth at the Sensor Specialist Plus Automation. Cheers. Thanks. Have fun.